to the Midwest Education Technology Communities podcast, otherwise known as METC. METC is a nonprofit organization based out of St. Louis, Missouri, with a mission to motivate, engage, transform, and connect all learners to advocacy, partnerships, and professional learning opportunities. METC is a premier affiliate of ISTE. To learn more about METC, follow us on social media at METC Ed Plus. You may also check out our website at metcedplus.org. METC is a program of Education Plus. To learn more about Education Plus, go to edplus.org. It is now time to begin our current episode. We thank you for listening and enjoy the learning. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the METC podcast. This is episode 52. My name is Jonathan Lee and I am your host. And this is our continued conversation with Abby Erwin, Spotlight Educator for the METC Conference 2019. This episode, she shares different apps for autism. She is going to be presenting a session called Apps for Autism 2, the second version. She presented the first version, I believe, she said in 2015. It was so popular then that she's now going to come back and do a second version of that session. So excited to have her at our conference in general, but what a neat session idea to talk about specific apps that help autistic students, because we can all use new tools for our toolbox to reach those students as well. So be sure to connect with Abby, check her out on Twitter, and I believe she said she's on Instagram as well. Give her a shout out, connect with her. And you can also check out the show notes, metcedplus.org. That's metcedplus.org. All the apps that she shares are linked within that show notes. Pretty cool ideas within that. So let's get right on into the second part of our conversation with Abby Erwin, technology coach from the Ferguson-Florissant School District, also a METC Spotlight Educator. Enjoy. All right, so we talked about different topics. You mentioned how Google is a big push. Dyslexia is a big push at the state level. So we've got tons of topics, obviously, you can focus on. Yeah. What's the topic that you are kind of passionate about, that you really like?
So this year at METC, I'm excited because I get to present each day of the conference as part of being a Spotlight Educator. And I'm going to talk about using GIF or GIF files in education. And I also am going to use Google Drawings as a tool to make books. That's been something I've done a couple times and had a really fun time with that. But the one I think I'm the most excited to talk about is Apps for Autism. I actually calling this one Apps for Autism 2. It's my second time presenting that at METC. The reason is I am the mom of 3 boys. 2 of my boys have autism. And my youngest son, for a while, we weren't sure if he was also on the spectrum. We took him to the doctor as well and found out that he was not, but that's okay. We figured it didn't matter. We knew how to deal with it, but I was always, as a classroom teacher, I had the perspective of working with students with autism and developmental disabilities, but when you're never prepared with how to deal with that when you're a parent. My husband's an educator too, and when we got my oldest son's diagnosis, we both kind of sat in the car and just looked at each other for 10 minutes like, well, what do we do now? Even though we both had many years of experience between the two of us and education degrees. And then when my second son was diagnosed, so it's my 2 oldest boys, Kyle and Sean, they, we kind of had an inkling of maybe that was what was going on, and it was confirmed. I was very passionate about providing professional development to teachers in the area of special education because it was my experience here that there weren't too many opportunities where teachers in special education were offered professional development geared specifically towards their students, especially when it related to technology. There were a lot of instructional strategies or very specific pedagogical strategies PD of that nature, but not necessarily anything that was geared towards some of the tools that we already had in the classroom that were being used for instructional strategies. So I thought, you know what, they deserve an opportunity to have a professional development, and it would help me as a mom and as a teacher, because I could then do some research on some applications that were proven to be successful or effective, and present that out at the conference and just see how it went. And it went really well. Apparently, one of the nicest compliments I got was last year at METC, so 2018. So that would have
last February.
Yeah, last February. Yeah, school years are always funny because they overlap and it feels like last year. It is last year, but it's not. Anyway.
Last school year.
Correct. Last school year. So I had a gentleman come up to me. I was at a completely different session. I wasn't even presenting. I was listening, and I answered a question, and the presenter happened to know me. So they just said, "Oh, Abby said, thank you for contributing." And this gentleman came up to me afterwards, and he said, "You presented apps for autism, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes." And this was in 2015 that I did that. And he goes, "I still share that out to people in my district today. It's been really helpful." And I said, "Thank you. That means a lot to me that it was that beneficial to you." So I decided, since people thought it was pretty great, why not do a round 2?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it really sounds like a win. I mean,
Yeah.
win as a parent, because you get to do a lot of, like you said, a lot of research, and then win for your district and our participants at METC too. I mean, it is. I mean, whether it's autism or whether it's, any other. I think, as you said, that as you deal with it as an educator, but not as a parent. I think of myself sitting at the IEP table, right, and I think of all the things I can do for the child that we're discussing, but I've never sat on the other end. And so just kind of hearing you say that, it's like, wow, okay, that would really change that perspective. And I'm sure the educators in this district know that when they come hear you, that you're not only speaking as an educator, but you're speaking as a parent too. And that it adds that perspective, I think, that's really meaningful from a PD standpoint.
Oh, definitely. I always treated my students with kindness and respect, but I really have a different approach to how I view students now, because even students who can be difficult behaviorally or academically, they're somebody's child, and almost 99.99% of the time, a parent's trying to do what's right by that child, and you only get one opportunity to educate those children. So I just thought, if I could just maybe provide one kind of platform to say, here's what I've found to be helpful with my own kids, with students, I've talked to teachers. Here's what they've found to be beneficial, and I've done the research and looked on Autism Speaks and Easter Seals and a lot of different websites, and kind of backed up, not just, oh, I think this tool is great, or I think this tool is great, but here's where it's been proven to be a successful tool to use. Then maybe someone will take a few of those away and try them in their classroom, and it will help bridge the gap with those students. And the great part about them is they're geared towards students with autism, but you know as well as I do, you could use them with effectively any student. So you don't have to have a developmental disability to benefit from it. But what makes technology so great for students with autism is it kind of levels the playing field. It kind of gives them a safe space to learn, and you can check for understanding, and they look typical, because if I know when I go home, if I gave my boys all an iPad, they're sitting there and they're playing, and you have no idea what's going on inside their brains. So it's a great tool to leverage for learning for students with developmental disability, any student really, and it was nice to kind of learn more about that.
And I thought about mentioning that too. I mean, I like learning about tools like that, because just because you say they're for autistic children or for deaf or hard of hearing children does not mean that other students can't benefit from it. And how often do you get tools that can say that? Because there are definitely tools that won't benefit an autistic child or a deaf or hard of hearing child
Right.
or somebody else, right? But to make sure that you have a good toolbox of tools that hit everybody, that have specific needs or portions of their product that hits all your students is very cool.
Right. So, for example, one of the tools that I didn't talk about it in the first apps for autism, but just one tool that sometimes we talk to teachers about is the voice typing in Google. Real simple. Doesn't really, I mean, it's not something you have to download or pay for, but it's beneficial because I could access it and dictate what I want to type, and it will pop up on my Word document. That could be beneficial to somebody who needs to practice speech. So if someone has, some kind of speech intervention, they can practice fluency using that, or any kind of gross motor or fine motor concerns. They can be able to type a document effectively without having to use their hands. And so, like you said, it's a tool that can be versatile for lots of areas. I am fortunate that I can type and I can read well, so I don't need it for the purposes that others might, but sometimes I use it just because it's handy. So I always try to pick things like that that'll kind of cover a broad base, but would be beneficial in a lot of different ways.
I definitely see, because I wish I kind of had that when I was growing
Yeah.
up, because I know I talk really fast and I really have a hard time slowing myself down. And as I talk to Google, either through my phone or Google Home at home, it has a hard time understanding me sometimes. Like, Jonathan, you got to slow yourself down. And I can tell over time, as I've used Google more often, I've gotten better at slowing myself down.
Yeah.
So my brain and myself have kind of learned that. And so I think back as I had my kids use that voice typing. Before it was integrated within Docs, we used like voice recognition. I think it was like an add-on or something like that. I can't remember.
Or maybe like Dragon Dictation or
Yeah,
something like that.
we didn't have access to that, but it wasn't like an add-on or an extension. I can't remember, but it was something like that. And,
Okay.
but it was the same concept. That's obviously a lot better now that it's integrated within Google. But think about it, because I had a lot of teachers go, well, they still have to be able to type and write sentences. I'm like, but they are.
Yeah.
They have to speak in complete sentences too. And so we, had that battle, of course. But now you think about all the things that we do now with our voice.
Yes.
And I've sit next to coworkers who will voice type emails on their phone, and I'm like, I wouldn't think to do it that way, but it makes sense. That's where we're going. So,
Right.
You start getting students used to using these tools. You're getting them ready for the future.
Right. And I guess the irony to that for me is, you use your phone. People joke you use your phone for everything but calling people, but then you are talking into your phone to send a written text message to people. So this time around, I'm still in the works of finding some different applications for my next presentation of that. The first time it was great because Autism Speaks has this really cool link on their page where you can, and you can even just Google it. If you type in Autism Speaks apps, it will take you to a page where you can filter applications by device, by need, by whether or not there's data to back up that it's an effective. So for example, some administrators might say, okay, you can use that, but you need to show me that it's research based. You could literally use that as a filter and it will bring up apps. There's just lots of different ways to kind of get what you want, and I used that to help me. And then of course I went out in the district and talked to the teachers that I worked with that were special education teachers, and asked them kind of what they liked to use and what they were familiar with, and then kind of just tried to cross-reference those with different platforms. So at METC we have teachers coming from all over the place, all different backgrounds, all different types of resource-rich districts to districts that don't have as many resources. And so from there, once I kind of had a healthy list of applications, I really did my best to make sure that they were available across Android, iOS, or Android, Apple, or web-based. So here's the app I like. Here's why I think it's a great app. And if you're in a district that uses Android, it's also available. So that slimmed down my presentation quite a bit, but that wasn't so bad because in those breakout sessions you have about an hour, and you kind of want to make it count. But like for example, one of the apps that I really like to show people that was really effective with my boys was called Column Counter. And we had it on the iPad, and basically it was just a visual way for them to count down when they were feeling stress. So it didn't really carry any content with it, or kind of support any curriculum, but it was a social emotional tool. Having 2 boys at home with autism, they struggle with processing emotions, and I like to say they feel all the feels, and sometimes they don't know how to adequately work their way through that. And so that was always a helpful tool for them to kind of take a deep breath and count down. I thought, well, shoot, I should use that. There's times where I get frustrated and I need to remember to count back down. And yeah, that was just one example of one that was helpful too.
Yeah, that's a good. I pulled it up here on my machine, and I mean, it's would be a great reminder. It's very bright in colors. There's the faces to help them give them that reminder too. And like I said, counts down 10, 3, 2. I mean, pretty neat. I mean, it's neat and interesting the fact that, because these are things that the adults would say, right? You as a parent would say, "Oh, you need to calm down," right?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, the mind doesn't let that voice in, but they can visualize and they can see the iPad. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing how effective it can be. I mean, certainly, I think the phrase that comes to mind for me is, if you see one child with autism, you see one child with autism. But that's people in general. And I think it was just amazing how that tool and some other tools too were very helpful to kind of provide some interventions where maybe, like you said, just talking about it is not going to be effective. Their brain works differently, so so you just have to kind of meet them where they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give away your whole presentation.
Okay.
Because I know everybody listening is going to be in your session at METC. So, but what is one more app that you really like to share out that helps? Can you think of one?
Coming up.
Just in general, you don't have to. You don't have to actually talk about it there.
So one that I really like, and I also like it because it's free, and it's a Chrome-based app. It's called Picto for Me. And what's so great about it is it provides picture cards or visual schedules for students where teachers can make their own. But what also is great, it's not as robust as an AAC device, so a communication device for students, but it does do some speaking. So if you were hoping to provide some kind of assistive technology for students where they might have difficulty verbalizing their needs, you can make very simple boards. And I like that it's free because a lot of those programs are very expensive. So I've found it to be nice, and then they saved a drive. And so I'm really trying this time to focus everything around Chrome and web-based, because that seems to be the way we're all going with educational technology. But also, Chromebooks have kind of become ubiquitous with classroom instruction, and we've all kind of gone that way. So might as well just embrace it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that in the St. Louis area for sure, we have a huge Chromebook population.
Yeah.
And I'm everything in my house is Google, so it's a 4-letter word. In my house, my wife's getting on board, and my daughter's on board. She's already talking to Google, and she's 2.5. So it's pretty scary to think that that's all they know.
Yeah.
I mean, tell Google to turn the lights on for her is okay, sure. So she'll go in the living room and turn on the lights. And it's just insane to be able to do that.
It's awesome.
But I will say, because we have a great partnership with Microsoft, that they are doing a big push. And if you haven't used Office 365, they've got a lot of tools that are built into their product that are now becoming web-based, which I think is what is holding them back a little bit. We're so used to the client version; it's based on the machine. But now they're really getting into that web-based piece and starting to make a big difference headway too. So it's pretty cool. But All right, so we know that Abby is passionate about autism apps, and autism in general. She's passionate about technology, and she's also passionate about sharing her knowledge with everybody else. So we're excited to have her as a Spotlight Educator this year. So congratulations again on that.
Thank you.
As we round up our episode here, could you let everybody know that listening how to get a hold of you, how to connect with you? Are you on Twitter, that kind of thing?
Yes. So I'm on Twitter. My handle is Abby_Erwin. So nothing fancy. Just kept it real simple. And I'm willing to connect with any and all educators and just anyone who wants to talk professional development, technology, education. That's what I use Twitter for. I do have an Instagram. I can't remember what that one is, but it's probably just A. Erwin. I'm not super creative with my names. I just figure if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me. I'm always welcome to having anyone email me. I kind of figure, yes, I work for Ferguson-Florissant, but, we're all a part of this educational family, and if there's anything I've learned, everyone counts and everybody's working towards the same goals. So if people want to email me, it's aerwin, AERWIN at fergflor.org. I'm happy to reach out to anyone and help anyone. Sam and I present in a lot of districts outside of here, so whatever I can do to help would be helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. All the information, so the information that she shared about the apps, her contact information, and her Twitter address will be all available in the show notes, so check that out there. Be sure to get registered for the conference. Come check her out. She's available all 3 days. She's
Yes.
doing the one workshop on book creating.
Yes.
And so for those not familiar, the workshops this year are going to be a 2-hour session.
Okay.
So you actually get to have a little bit more time with the presenter and actually hopefully get to build.
Yeah.
So not only are you going to learn about books and how Abby integrates that within her work, hopefully you will actually have time to start building your own.
Yep.
So those will be pretty neat little sessions that we're going to be doing there at the conference. But we're excited to have you.
Thank you.
And I thank you for being on our podcast.
Thank you.
And
This was great.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. And thank you everybody for listening. And until our next episode, have a good one, everyone. That concludes our conversation with Abby Erwin, tech extraordinaire. I greatly appreciate her sitting down and talking with us about her passion with sharing apps and just her general knowledge on how to reach students with autism and how we can support those students by integrating technology tools that meet their needs. And so she shared some great resources. They are available in the show notes, so check those out at metcedplus.org. Click on those links and check them out. So pretty cool. I have not seen some of those before, but definitely can see how they would be valuable to not just students with autism, but some students in general. So that's why I like some of these tools that we share that, yes, they are geared toward autistic students or special needs students, but doesn't mean that other students can't use them. And it's always valuable to find resources that meet a wide range of students, especially those that have the special needs. So I greatly appreciate her sharing those. I'm excited to see her session at the METC conference. I think you should come join us. She will be there all 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So check out the session grid. It is available on the website at metcedplus.org. You can register there as well. Check out the different sessions, the types of workshops. We've got poster sessions. We've got a student showcase going on Tuesday. All kinds of things happening at our conference. So you should definitely be there in February. It's awesome. Come for 1 day, 2 days, or all 3 if you can. It's going to be an awesome event. So we're excited to be putting that on again this year. This is our 36th annual METC conference. Pretty amazing to think that we've had a tech conference go on for 36 years already. So pretty cool stuff. This also will bring an end to the METC podcast for 2018. It has been a great year. A lot of great listeners out there. I greatly appreciate you checking us out. I know that there are so many podcasts out there nowadays, and so I'm greatly honored and appreciate your listenership or your, can't call it viewership, I guess, but dedicating your time to learn with us. I greatly appreciate it. I selfishly do this podcast because I like to learn as well, and it is just a way for me to kind of learn from all the people we have in our region And so I appreciate you listening to my selfishness. It's great. Appreciate that. So I want to wish all of you a happy holiday season. Enjoy your time with your family and friends. Be sure to catch us on the new year, 2019, as I continue our conversations with more METC spotlights. We've got 3 more rolling out in January before our conference in February. So excited about all of those as well. And hoping that 2019 is just as awesome as 2018 with the METC podcast. So again, thanks for checking us out, metcedplus.org for the show notes. You can reach me at jleetech% on Twitter until the new year. Have a great one, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Midwest Education Technology Communities podcast, otherwise known as METC. To learn more about METC, check out our website at metcedplus.org or follow us on social media at METC Ed Plus. To learn more about Education Plus, go to edplus.org.